You know what I'm saying? For us all to get together.
And we can't have no cowards.
I don't need that.
Let's do it.
We got Fillmore, Hunters Point.
Come on now, it's ours. We take it out community back.
We can stop this beef.
That's right.
See, 'cause that's what I'm worried about.
See here, we also passed out food to the community. We also want to thank Reverend Zach and his church for partnershiping with us and also allowing some of his church members to volunteer with the NCLF as we made sure that the community was fed. Next slide. So the purpose. The purpose of the Fillmore Heritage Center Oversight Board concept. Number one, to oversee and monitor the implementation of the compliance of the mandatory community benefits of the new ownership of the Fillmore Heritage Center commercial space. Now, just real briefly, you know, the main thing that really put us in a lot of distress with the previous owner and the community benefits package is that I think when the organizations like Ellie Hill Hutch as well as others was charged with over the community benefits package, the problem is that the redevelopment agency was on its way out. So while the redevelopment agency was sunsetting, then we had a situation where no compliance was in place in terms of the funding. You know, everybody kept talking about the budget, we don't have the budget. And I think, or we think that, you know, Michael Johnson, although it could have been better, it could have been a better process, we have to still leave room for it. You know, he had a lot to deal with during the time of Yoshi's, before Yoshi's went bankrupt. So it could have been, a lot of things could have been done from a city level that just didn't happen. And we want to make sure going forward that that don't happen again. So this body, we would like to introduce a board that is not only community driven, but it's community selected. Meaning that this won't happen necessarily without you. Everyone needs to take a role and play a position as we move forward in establishing this board. The board must be community driven. We as a community, we got to develop integrity among ourselves and accountability among ourselves and put in place some type of mechanisms that the city and everyone else recognize so we can guide the community out of this darkness into the light. Now we say all the time that, you know, city halls oftentimes plan and without us. So let's take the preemptive measure as a community. And even if, you know, we develop a voting process ultimately, we can do that. As a community, we have a right to establish and then force others to recognize us as a community, because this is the community will. And as you can see on that front page, a resolution was established by OCII, which is now the new agency that the mayor established, which is to the successor agency of the San Francisco Redevelopment Agency. We lobbied the OCII and we actually fought them to establish this resolution that gives the community leverage. But now it's time for us to organize. Because if we don't organize as a community and really speak with one voice to the city and to our supervisor that this is where the community want to head with it, we want to help the city help us. We want to help the city and show the city how compliance will work when it's community driven. And of course, stakeholders, like I said earlier, it's all of us, stakeholders. Not only just stakeholders nearby, but for those who's been impacted, displaced, and of course, certificate of preference holders. Next slide. So this is the proposed board composition. And in other words, what we identified as the NCLF and with our advisory committee, that we need to start somewhere. It's not perfect. It's not something that we just say it's written in stone. We know we got to work from something. We got to have something that we are looking at before we can start creating this organic process of creating a board, which can encompass all of the stakeholders and really be the type of board that represent the broad versus the narrow. So number one, Fillmore certificate and preference holder, entertainer, promoter, and producer, someone from the faith-based community, Fillmore corridor merchant, a CBO, grassroots community organization, a member of that's a youth or young adult, and another member that's who's a part of the Fillmore Heritage Center condo owner. That would help us get the voices and get the positions from literally 7 key areas. Now, again, that's not all, and there may be some other areas and maybe some other suggestions that the community. That's why we're here tonight, because once I sit down, you know, we're going to ask you to come up and speak to some of the things that you can see. Now, you see a line after number 7, and that's not division. However, that line, you know, so our supervisor, as well as the mayor's office, as well as Northern Station and the Entertainment Commission, we need to find a way to create a board, again, that would help us keep this Heritage Center in place, which, you know, we're dealing with entertainment permits, we're dealing with permits from the police department when you're dealing with ABC license for alcohol and etc. We also are dealing, you know, of course, with the mayor's office, because you're still going to have to deal with the fact that this is going to be an ongoing process. And once the new owner take over, that there's certain obligations that the new owner must meet, right? And then, of course, our supervisor, who's from, you know, who's been really working with us and helping this process along. We want someone, whether it's Supervisor Breed, we want to create a seat for District 5. That's important, because this is a private and public partnership investment of this whole building. And as we going forward, and until we get to a point where we can be more independent, we want to recognize what's in place now. So that's 11 members, and of course, again, you know, it needs to be an organic process. There needs to be a way that the community selects the community, but then when we have the other seats, which some people may call at-large seats, but there's a way that we can do this, because it's been done before. And let me just say this quick thing before we go to the next slide. And the OGs in here know what I'm talking about. So if it was WACO, WAPAC, if it's the advisory board of the past, these past boards and organizations and committees that was in place was safety net for the community voice. But when you don't have an organization that the community can sit at and speak to those here before we go abroad, that's a sign of trouble. That's a red flag. Next slide. So these are two of the things, and someone just asked me a question when we was over here in the lobby area about, qualifications or what are we looking for as a board. Number one, to start with, remember what we said at the last meeting, we was dealing with certificate of preference holders. Now that don't exclude no one else. That means us as an organization recognize that the certificate of preference holders in this whole process has been the very foundation that we built our community benefits plan. Now originally, for those who don't know, certificate of preference holders is of course those who was displaced as a result of the San Francisco Redevelopment Agent Project 1 and 2 of the past. And even if you were a certificate of preference holder, business or residential, you somehow still have certain rights that the state provides. That's under California redevelopment law, which is still in place. So as you can see, there's a check mark at the bottom, and that's open. That's a little bad joke. Next slide. So this was some of the stakeholders' feedback from the series of the 3 meetings that took place in 2015 when the city as well as Supervisor London Breed office sponsored these meetings over at the West Bank, July the 7th, July the 15th, October the 26th. And these are some of the things that the community respond to in the meetings about what the community actually want to envision and see. One of them was continue live entertainment as an anchor for the Fillmore Heritage Center, and of course create economic or generate economics here for the Fillmore corridor and draw visitors, support the areas, the businesses, and the streetscapes for day and night. Which in other words, we need nightlife too, right? The third one was communities. They at that time believed also the Fillmore Heritage Center property as well as potential businesses should be viable and sustainable over a period of time. We're gonna have a lot of businesses come and go, which is never helping the community, because once the community start, even supporting the businesses, it's not a win-win when the business has to close. We all lose. Lastly, the community had desired at that time, of course, the community benefits, which that was a plan that we submitted along with others, and also keep here at the Heritage Center community events, programming, opportunity, jobs, affordable arts, small business space. Next slide.